You will learn something today watching this video. I'm going to talk about the psychology of the breakup, and it's something I've never really seen online. That's why I wanted to do this video, to explain you some psychological mechanisms that are actually in play when you're not necessarily aware of those, and that's probably the reason you're struggling right now to get back with your ex. I explained everything after the jingle.
IGetMyExBack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
Let's start with the decision. It probably took them months to take the decision. The reason is you don't have to think that because it took them months to take the decision, it's necessarily the right decision, right? And that's what we're going to look today. That's what we're going to analyze. It's just the outcome of a thinking process. The thing is, they think it's a rational decision. And you probably think it's a rational decision. And that's why you're struggling, because you try to rationalize the decision. And I'm going to explain exactly after that, the next couple of slides, what I mean by that. Our job, and in this video, what I want you to take away from this video is how you can prove them wrong. Because if you think about it, if what you had was strong, if you were in love, if you still have feelings, your job is basically for you right now to prove them wrong, to prove them that their decision is the wrong decision. So how do we do that? First of all, what's leading to the decision? They took the decision, they were happy with you, you were a happy couple, everything was amazing. At some point, they decide, let's end the relationship. The loss of attraction, the lack of communication, too many arguments, infidelity, jealousy, all the reasons for people to break up. Now, if you think about it, these are outcomes. These are outcomes of something that happened in their head for a few weeks or a few months. The fact that you feel there's a loss of attraction is because at some point in the relationship, your ex started to feel detached. For reasons that we can explain later on, but it's just an outcome of that thinking process. It's just the tip of the iceberg, right? When you feel that you're not sleeping together anymore, you don't talk to each other anymore, you don't laugh together anymore. If you reflect and think like in the past 6 months, wasn't that, we didn't have the same connection. That was not the root cause of the breakup. That was the outcome. The outcome of them thinking about breaking up with you. The outcome of them failing to see that you're making progress, or for you, failing to see that there is a problem. Okay, we're going to analyze how to overcome this. Now, a thing I want you to understand is, of course, there are other reasons like the lack of compatibility, the lack of emotional connection, abuse. For these 3 things, I can't help you. For these 3 reasons for people to decide to break up, I don't think you should get back together. If your husband or your wife was abusive, I don't think it's the right decision for you to fight getting back together. If you're not compatible, if you have different values, how can you build something strong? Same for emotional connection. And 99% of people I speak on a daily basis, I know that they have and had strong emotional connection. They are compatible and there's no abuse. But I just want to highlight this, because if you're watching this video and think like, well, the thing is, we're not really compatible, but I love her, it's just a one-sided thing. And you have to realize that it's not really the right thing for you to fight getting back with your ex. So the process leading to the decision, and that's what we're going to discuss today, is how we make decision, how human beings make decision. As we discussed, there's a misconception between the outcome and the triggers. Let's look at the triggers. Triggering events. Life event. Maybe you live long distance. You have a stressful job. Maybe you have kids. It's a big disruption in a couple. It's a very different dynamic when you're single parents. Not single parents. When you're a couple without kids, you can hang out, go out, and stuff like that. When you have kids, it's a totally different dynamic. And I speak from someone who knows what I'm talking about. Unconscious triggers. These ones are harder to understand and to anticipate. Things that are, for example, the attachment styles, when you feel that when you ask a little bit of commitment from your partner, from your ex, they start to detach, they start to freak out. You talk about buying a house and now they are gone. The fear basically of typical situations that they are actually recreating in their head unconsciously. You don't necessarily need to have had trauma in your childhood, but there are things that we replay in our head, fear that will also prevent us from being honest, transparent with our partner, and that would sometimes push us to separate. Disappointment. Maybe they thought you were, I don't know, an amazing dad, and you're proving that you're not really there for your children, that you're very busy and you are focused on other things. Maybe you were too good at proving them, at sort of fighting for her or him, and now you're complacent, the typical I took her or him for granted, right? So the deception, they thought you were there, you had this strong image, you build that strong branding in a way, and you don't deliver on those. Okay, so that's a reason, that's a root cause. And then over time, yes, there's a lot of attraction. Over time, there's a lack of communication, right? Repetition is also a key factor. If you've been together and are in love, you can make mistakes, we all make mistakes. But the problem is that when there's a repetition, when you have arguments, but the outcome of the argument is not something where you discuss and agree, you just talk to each other, that's it. Where there's a lack of intimacy, but it's after a few days, few weeks, and it's not really talked about. The repetition of the above point would create that dynamic, would create that storytelling in your ex's mind that the best decision for them is to leave. And I'm going to explain you why it's important, and I explain you the decision process here. I'm basing this from this book and there's other books on System 1 and System 2 brain, but this one is a really good book. That's why I wanted to share this with you. If you're interested in psychology and cognitive psychology and behavioral science, especially in terms of a consumer point of view, it's a very interesting book. To make a long story short about this book, we have two brains, System 1 brain, System 2 brain. System 1 brain is extremely powerful, extremely fast. It's the one that is working on any of our reflexes, any of the breathing, the digesting, anything that's automatic in our head. It's the emotional part of our brain. System 2 brain is the rational brain, is the one that is able to pause and reflect, that is able to think into the future, to plan, to think about concepts as money. Very different brain, but the System 2 brain is very slow. That's why it's thinking fast and slow. Because in a lot of situations, our System 1, the primitive one, the dumb one, will take over because it's faster. Okay? And it is happening to us on a daily basis. Regardless of your background, regardless of your IQ, your EQ, your culture, or your country, we are all hardwired the same way. There are two main biases that would influence your ex's decision. It's one of the things I want to highlight. The first one is the halo effect. It's basically the scientific term, and I'm going to try to say it properly, it's the exaggerated emotional coherence. It's basically, whenever you see someone for the first time, you label that person to be a nice person, just because you have this good, strong first impression. And very quickly, we associate good and bad, black and white. And what's going to happen with the halo effect is it's going to be very hard for you to change this image. It's going to be very hard to alter your opinion, even if you're presented with evidence that points to the contrary. So when you're in love, the positive thing is when you're in love, everything is perfect. It's amazing. She's funny or he's funny, we're intimate, sex is amazing, etc., etc. We have this halo effect, and we fail to notice that he's kind of selfish, or she's very superficial, because we have this halo effect. Okay, so most short-term relationship fails because of the halo effect fades away. We can also talk about honeymoon phase, but the honeymoon phase is based on this cognitive bias. So one thing, because I move on to the next bias, is perhaps your breakup is just a result of the halo effect fading away. Have a look, take the test to know if your relationship can be recovered. It will basically give you a score, and you'll know right away if you should be fighting to get your ex back, or if you should stop watching my videos and do something else. The link is in the description of the video, and it takes literally 2 minutes to complete the test. It's totally free. The second bias is the confirmation bias. So it's the thing where when you start noticing something about someone, and for example, like he's selfish, and whenever you see other points of data contradicting this, you will ignore them. You won't see them. And everything you do will be looked into the prism of selfish. People will tend to confirm he's selfish, he's arrogant. And anything that you'll do that is not selfish or not arrogant will be ignored. It's a confirmation bias. When you make a purchase, you will confirm, you will say like, oh, people who will take a bet on sporting events, that's the example in the book, you will confirm like, because I took this bet, because I'm committed in this bet, I'm gonna really try to confirm that I made the right decision. That works in the right way for the relationship and in the wrong way. So a lot of couples, they stay together because they have this confirmation bias. It doesn't work. Nothing works in their relationship. They've been together for a long time. Nothing is sort of working out, but they have this confirmation bias. When you have those sort of triggers that we discussed before, and your ex starts to see things differently, she or he thinks that, they change and you're not changing, see that there's something wrong, that their vision is different, they will start to have this confirmation bias. The problem is that you can't be perfect. And when someone starts to have this confirmation bias, whatever you do won't be perfect. Especially when you reach a point where it's been months of them confirming things. Maybe they had this, I don't like the way he speaks to me, or I don't like the way he looks after the kids. Sort of planting a seed in their head. And then next time, they'll be watching, how are you with the kids? And they'll be thinking again. And so maybe they'll have this discussion with you. Maybe you fail to understand and address this. Maybe they don't have that conversation with you, but it is growing in the head, in the background. And what's happening is that there's the halo effect, really refuting all the evidence that they might be wrong, plus the confirmation bias. It's actually a little bit like you would be watching something from a tube with a magnifying lens, right? And so the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as weeks and months pass by. The thing is, as is brilliantly put in the book, our decisions are emotionally are based on emotion and are unconscious. We think that we're rational animals, but we are not. And love is an emotion. And your ex's reaction is emotional. Regardless whether it took them months to do the decision, it is an emotional decision. And it is why you get those mixed signals. I don't know why, but we need to break up. I feel I miss you when I'm not with you, but I want to break up. And so this is why when you call me, you tell me like I'm confused, it doesn't make sense. He or she tells me this, but she or he does the other thing. Because they are confused, and so you are. And actually, by the way, just to remind you that you can give me a call if you are confused and have questions. I'll be more than happy to jump on a call with you and meet with you. I'm doing video in my kitchen, but I love to have interaction with you guys. Don't be shy, it's free. I have those 15-minute calls every day with people, and I love to discuss with you. It's amazing for me because I speak with people from all around the world: Australia, New Zealand, China, South Africa, US, obviously, UK, Argentina the other day, Mexico, Norway. So yeah, from wherever you come from, don't hesitate to pick up the phone. If your English is not so strong, don't worry, mine is not strong either. So how do we convince them? Let's get to the solution, right? You don't convince them, and that's probably the reason you struggle. And that's probably the reason before you watch my video you struggle, and probably the reason when people call me and say like I should have watched video earlier, they struggle. You can't argue. It doesn't feel right. Because the reason is, of course, it's emotional. And what you're doing sometimes they like, yeah, you're telling me that I'm lazy, but I'm going to work out and I have a plan and I'm going to have this and I'm going to do this. By coming up with those proofs, this plan, you're also talking to the wrong part of their brain. The problem is when we are very emotional, the only way we can change our mind is when we are thinking we are making the decision. The best way to convince someone is not to sell him something, is that that person buys into your service, right? And it's very different than pushing. It's a bit like when you do sales. You don't want to be closing a deal. You just want them to be buying your services, your product yourself, okay? And you can influence that. The more you push, the more they pull back. So what you have to do is to really make sure that you work on your branding, you work on things. I'll discuss what you do, but this is what you have to do. Because then that will kill this cognitive bias. The more you push, as we discussed a little bit when you speak with someone who believes that the earth is flat, the more you're going to try to convince them with numbers, with science, they will say, no, I don't believe in science, that's a big scam, blah, 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 blah. And that's why those two populations can't really speak to each other, because they are basically refuting, I don't believe in science, the science doesn't work, and science thinks like, science is the truth. How can people not believe in science? Anyway, that's another debate. I'll do a video on that because I think it's fascinating. So your job is to influence the decision, and that's what I do with my clients every day, is to work with my clients to help them influence their ex. They're not manipulating them, they're just working from their point of view to influence them, to change the narrative. You've already influenced them to break up with you. So what you have to do is to do the other way around. You have to use the same mechanism in your favor this time. What you have to do, especially because it's an emotional response, is to reset that emotional tension. One way to reset, the most pragmatic one, is to do no contact. You switch off that emotional tension. And then what you have to do is 2 bullet points, but it's really hard, it takes a lot of work, and that's what takes most of my time with my clients, is making consistent actions to change their perception. They think you're lazy, you be fucking working hard every single day. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to show off, they will see it. But it has to be consistent. It has to come from a place where I want to change, I believe I can change, I'm changing, I've changed. So it's not an overnight change because your ex knows you very well. She or he assessed you for a couple of months, and you saying like, I'm going to change tomorrow, doesn't work in their mind. Time and reality will make it happen. You have to do both. You can't force them, you can't convince them, and it needs a bit of time. Some people think like, with time, they realize. But if you don't do the work, they realize nothing. And some people want to force. So you need to have those two things. It's very important. So, just to recap, their decision was emotional. Your response needs to tap into their emotional thing. It's not about argumenting, it's not about facts. No, not facts. It's about facts actually. It's about actions. But it's not so much about explanation. That's not what they're after right now. What they're after is to, okay, prove me wrong. They will never say that. They will never ask you to prove them wrong, but that's your job, okay? Because that's the thing. It's also about the things that are not said. A breakup is a signal for you to wake up, a breakup for you to become the best version of yourself. That's why I love to help people after breakups, because that's a key moment in their life, a key moment to understand what they should be working on, understand. Could be sort of a ha-ha moment or an awakening moment for you to become the best version of yourself, to prove your ex wrong. You don't have to overdo it, you don't have to brag about it, just be yourself, a better version of yourself, and you'll see she or he will get back to you. If you like the video, don't forget to click on the like, it does help me a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow, bye bye.
IGetMyExBack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.